It is so easy for us to get distracted nowadays. I know that I personally deal with it myself on a daily basis. Between the constant notifications from our phones, the easy access to internet, messages from our friends, etc., there are more ways than ever to get pulled away from whatever it is we're trying to do. That's why it's more important than ever to be able to cultivate our ability to focus on whatever it is that we're doing, whether that's working on a project or simply trying to spend time with our friends and family. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Tyler Warlow, and I make videos on things I wish I knew when I was younger. All of these videos center around how to improve your life through your confidence, capabilities, and overall happiness. So I'm sure that if you clicked on this video that you are struggling to maintain your focus. And honestly, that is something that I myself am still dealing with to this day. But I figured I would make this video to talk about some of the things that I've learned and some of the things that help me personally whenever I am struggling to maintain my focus. If that sounds interesting to you, let's go ahead and jump into the video. So let's be honest, why do you think that you're getting distracted? At the root of it, it's probably because you have some sort of idea of what you'd like to work on, but honestly, you didn't really have a plan in place to work on it. So let's say that you wanted to work on writing a book. You told yourself today that you would write said book, but you never actually sat down and made a plan for yourself, whether that was how long you would write it for, how many pages you would write, or the particular chapter you were thinking of working on. You never actually sat down and made that plan. So then when it came time for you to actually start working on said book, you found yourself getting caught up and getting distracted doing things like scrolling through social media because you never really had a solid intent in the first place. By setting up a plan, you're going to help yourself to have a solid understanding of what it is you're trying to accomplish today. This is important because it's been shown time and time again that when people actually take the time to write things down and set goals and plans, that they are much more likely to achieve them. I personally start most of my days with a running to-do list that anything that doesn't get finished in the one day gets carried over into the next. I've noticed something happen if I don't set the start of my day with a plan. Even though I have this to-do list of things I want to do, I find myself getting a lot more distracted. And that's because I never establish what it is exactly that I want to work on. So I see this long list in front of me and I have trouble deciding like, yeah, these are the things that I'm going to work on today. And because I'm a little overwhelmed at where I should probably start, I tend to start doing other things that are a little less meaningful, like going through my emails, checking Teams messages, etc. These small tasks don't really contribute anything to getting the overall tasks on my to-do list done. So they're not really value added, but I do them anyway because, like I said, I'm a little overwhelmed at where to start on the running to-do list. What I've personally found works the best for me is if at the beginning of the day, I start off by picking 3 items from that to-do list that are my top 3 priorities. And then I make sure that somewhere on my calendar that I set aside time to work on those priorities. The goal is to get whatever amount of work done for myself that I set, whether it's completing a specific step, getting a certain amount of the project done. The goal is to complete that priority. But I don't beat myself up too bad if I didn't, as long as I tried to work on it for the time allotted. Obviously, everyone's work schedules are different, but I'm sure that there's some extent that you would be able to set aside time for specific tasks. If I happen to complete all 3 of the priorities that I established at the beginning of my day, that's when I can start tackling the other things on my to-do list. And this is a little bit more freeform. The top 3 priorities are really done so that I can make sure that I have consistent progress being built upon day over day. Some people like to do this a little differently than I do, where they use their calendar to time block every part of their day. This personally doesn't work super well for me because it doesn't give me a lot of flexibility if things shift and change throughout the day, and that can actually cause me some undue stress. I personally like to have a little bit of that built-in flexibility. Say I need a few extra minutes to just complete the task, or if something else like an unexpected meeting pops up. But if you like the idea of using your calendar to schedule your entire day, I recommend looking into the concept of time blocking. But now that you've gone ahead and set yourself a plan, I'm going to request that you go ahead and eliminate your most common distractions. This guy right here, for me personally, is my biggest distraction. I find myself checking it even when I'm not getting notifications, which has been coined something called the phantom vibration syndrome. A lot of other people experience this, and essentially our brains have been so trained by our phones to expect that quick dopamine hit every time that we check it, that we start checking it even when we didn't get any sort of notification, because our brain expects that quick dopamine hit. Whenever we're breaking our focus off of what it is that we're working on towards something like our phones, we're constantly breaking our focus and attention. This makes it a lot harder to maintain focus and be able to do consistent and deep work. Now, some days are better than others, but if I find that I'm having a particularly difficult day focusing and this thing just keeps seeming to come up, then I will put it away and make sure that I can't access it in any form. When I'm at home, I will put the phone in a different room entirely, but if I'm at work, then I will put it in my book bag and zip it up. This creates some form of barrier for me from accessing the phone, rather than it just simply being on the desk in front of me and being easy to flip over and check every 10 seconds. What's kind of crazy is even when I do this, I still very much feel the tug or the desire to want to check my phone. There's been moments when I've put my phone away and then I've reached for my phone that's not even there to try and check it, because it's become such a habit and such an expectation of my brain. So this is where you come in. This is where you need to identify what it is that distracts you to the same level as my phone distracts me. If you're someone who gets on the internet when they really should be working, then install site blockers. And I know that sometimes those request passwords to make it a little harder, so if you want to make it even harder on yourself, you could have a friend or family member put in the password so that way you don't know it. If you are still struggling with the internet, you could always go back to analog pen and paper to help you focus on something that might just require some writing. If you're someone who easily gets distracted and gets caught up in conversations with other people in your office, I highly recommend getting yourself a pair of noise canceling headphones. These usually signal to people that you are working, and then on top of that, it makes it harder for you to hear the conversations that are just going on around you. So it's a lot less likely that you'll get drawn into a conversation that you weren't initially a part of. And finally, for a lot of people, having a messy workspace can be distracting to them. So make sure that you take the time to reset your workspace at the end of the workday. I personally take the time, it only takes about 5 minutes to reorganize my desk so things are back where they belong at the end of the workday, and I'm not working off of a messy workspace the next day. This allows me to quickly get set up and quickly get into my work instead of having to clear off and make space when I should have done that previously. Now, a key thing here is that you're going to need to stick with this habit of not getting distracted by whatever it is that you get distracted by. You're going to need to do this consistently for a decent period of time, probably 30 days or more. And trust me, as I have said dealing with my phone, it is going to be difficult at first. You're going to feel that tug, you're going to want to feel that desire to do it. And sometimes you might fail, but as long as you get back on the bus and you keep doing the thing to help prevent that distraction, the better off that you're going to be, and the more that you'll train yourself to be able to not get distracted by that thing. When you first start doing that, it's probably going to take some mental focus in and of itself, which is going to bring me to my next thing. When you are doing focus work or doing stuff that requires your attention and focus, this is going to take energy away from you throughout the day. So you really should be taking breaks throughout the day in order to help your mind and body reset and be able to go into the next bout of focused attention. Andrew Huberman has done some really great podcast episodes on focus that I highly recommend you check out. but in pretty much all of them, he states how really the maximum amount of time that a person is typically seen being able to maintain a bout of focus is about 90 minutes. And this doesn't take into account that it takes some time for most people to get into that really deep focus. So in that 90 minutes, there's still about 15 to 20 minutes where you're going into the bout of focus, and then there's another 15-20 minutes where you're starting to lose the focus. We as humans naturally go through these cycles of high focus and low focus, and when we are trying to maintain high focus, that takes attention and energy. When you're first starting out, you might want something to help you gauge about how long you've been working on something, and a tool that I've personally used many times is the Pomodoro timer. The concept is that you do 25 minutes of work and then a 5-minute break up until the 4th time that you do it, when you then do a 15-minute break. Now, I personally don't use it as strictly as the Pomodoro timer lays out. What I'll do is, if I'm finding that I'm doing really good work, I'll continue to work through that 5-minute break. That's as long as I make sure that I take some form of break at some point in there. A pretty good indicator is if you start to feel yourself falling out of that mode of focus, then that might be a good time to take a break. But if this is the first few times that you're doing this, you're probably going to struggle with that right off the bat. So don't let that fool you. You want to try and maintain it for probably around that 45 to 50 minute mark. Now, Ali Abdaal made a great point when it comes to the break. When you take that break, make sure that you're actually taking that as a break away from things. Don't go and check your team's messages. Don't get on social media, because that's potentially going to end up with you coming up with other things that you need to do. This isn't really giving your brain a break from the work. It's just engaging in other things. What studies found were that the most effective breaks were the ones where people actually stepped away and did things where their mind was on something completely different outside of whatever it was that they were working on. Now, this next one's probably going to bother some of y'all because you guys think that you're great at it, but the studies show that you really should try to minimize your multitasking. Trust me, I get that through a busy workday, sometimes it's hard to avoid it, especially between trying to talk to different stakeholders on projects and things of that nature. But if you can, you really want to try and focus on one task at a time. And the reason that this is important is whenever you are splitting your attention between different tasks, you're not really able to give your full attention to one thing that you're working on. Because you're not able to dedicate your full attention to any singular task, you don't make as significant progress than if you had given your full focus to that one task. This is very similar in concept to what I've talking about in my videos on goals, where a common pitfall that people make with goals is setting way too many of them and trying to work on them all at once. Because you're trying to work on so many different things at one time, you see a little bit of progress here and there, but it's not anything really substantial, and it takes a lot longer to get to that final endpoint. The same thing goes with your work. If you're splitting that attention everywhere, it's going to take you a lot longer to complete that initial task than if you just sat down for an hour or two and really focused on getting it done. Now, this next one is going to seem a little obvious, but a lot of people don't realize the impact that it has on their focus and attention. You're going to want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself both physically and mentally. This is going to be making sure that you have a healthy diet, making sure that you're getting enough rest. This is going to be making sure that you have a healthy diet, that you exercise regularly, and that you are getting enough rest. All these things are going to help your body to recover and be able to rest your brain so that it can recharge and be ready for the next day and be able to go in with 100% energy rather than being depleted, getting a little bit of a recharge, and then only being able to tackle the next day at 80%. When you do something like that repeatedly over time, you're just going to slowly see a downward trend in performance if you don't do something about it. Another thing that I don't think enough people talk about is the social connection component of your mental health. There's a lot of people who just dive 100% into their work or their personal projects, and they don't really make enough time for friends or family to be able to have some social connection. And sometimes this works great. Some people are able to do some really productive work for a decent amount of time. But trust me when I say that eventually this catches up to you. When you don't make time to have social experiences with anyone, your brain starts to crave it, and it begins to kind of let you know that by going through the symptoms of burnout, which I've talked about in previous videos. If you're not allowing your brain to recharge by having that social connection, it is eventually going to catch up to you. So I highly recommend that you make some time to connect with friends, families, and peers. That's going to bring us to the end of today's video. I'm going to give you a quick summary of what we talked about today. In today's video, we talked about how you can start eliminating distractions and better maintain your focus. First off, you're going to want to make a plan for whatever it is that you're going to work on. Then you're going to want to eliminate distractions from your environment. Once you've done that and you've started working a little bit, you're going to want to make sure that you give yourself breaks. As you're working, you're going to want to make sure that you're not trying to multitask on too many things, because your attention is going to be split among all those things, preventing you from making significant progress on any of them. And finally, you're going to want to make sure that you give yourself the rest and recharge that your body and brain both need in order to tackle the next day at 100%. And that's going to bring us to the end of today's video. If you found the information in it to be helpful or informative at all, please be sure to leave a like and to subscribe to the channel to join me along in this self-improvement journey. If you have any of your own thoughts, ideas, or opinions, please be sure to let me know with a comment down below. I like to read and respond to all of them. If you're interested in more videos like this one where I talk about subjects related to learning, then check out this video right here where I talk about how to learn with limited amount of time. If you're more interested in my most recent stuff, be sure to check out this video right here. But until the next time, this is Tyler Warlow, signing off.